Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Biggest Band in the series where I take a look at the career of every state's most popular band. Last time we braved the icy tundra of Alaska, so go ahead and make sure you click that card and check that out if you haven't already. This time around, we're going on down the list and traveling to the state of Arizona. Before we get into the music, let's talk a little bit about the state itself. Arizona is well known for several things: desert climate, its long open stretches of highway, stunning environments and rock formations, and of course, the best damn iced tea 99 cents can buy. Here we see its state flag, which I can only assume was designed after Captain Marvel's boobs. The most famous city in Arizona, as we all know, that's right, Radiator Springs. Arizona's state nickname is the Grand Canyon State, for obvious reasons. That's right, it is home to the Grand Canyon, an aptly named, awe-inspiring canyon carved out by the might of the Colorado River over the course of millions of years. 277 miles long, 18 miles wide, and at points over a mile deep. It's said that nearly 2 billion years of Earth's geological history has been exposed by the river's efforts. It's one of the 7 natural wonders of the world, and is the second most stunningly beautiful sight Arizona has given the world. The first, of course, being Emma Stone. Arizona is also the largest supplier of copper in the entire country. Like, it's not even close. 60% of copper for the entire country comes just from them. Now, while Arizona may be well known for its abundance of copper, it's also well known for its abundance of Cooper. Oh, that's right. The biggest band to come out of Arizona is Alice Cooper. So sharpen the blade of your guillotine, break out the eyeliner, and hide your chickens. Today we're talking about Alice Cooper. Now, I know what you're thinking. Is Alice Cooper a band or just the guy? And the answer is yes. Alice Cooper, the guy, was born Vincent Fernier, and he would have his name legally changed to Alice Cooper in 1975 to avoid legal complications over ownership of the band name, ensuring that no one could steal it. As the name Alice Cooper was owned by the whole band, Cooper actually pays a yearly royalty to the original band members to be allowed to use the name commercially, even though it's his legal name now. But we're not there yet. Let's start at the beginning. So as said, before he was Alice Cooper, he was Vincent Fernier, born on February 4th, 1948, not in Arizona, but in fact, Detroit, Michigan, but would soon move to Phoenix with his family as a young boy. It is here that his interest in music begins to take off. In his 2007 memoir, Golf Monster, he recalls seeing the famous Beatles performance on The Ed Sullivan Show. And the next day at school, everyone was talking about that performance. It was like something in the air had shifted, something in culture had changed, just from that one show. In the book, he states, "It was as if a weird revolution had struck the students. Vincent knew then he wanted in. Music was for him." He gathered a few of his friends from his high school track team, some of which would continue to work with him in Alice Cooper proper, such as Glenn Buxton on lead guitar and Dennis Dunaway on bass, and formed the group The Earwigs, a band that was essentially formed just to participate in the Cortez High School's annual Letterman's Talent Contest. Continuing to draw their inspiration from the Beatles, the members all wore costumes and wigs to make themselves look like the Fab Four, and played a handful of Beatles parody songs, with the lyrics all changed to center around being on the track team. Believe it or not, they won that talent show. Encouraged by their success, the group decided to take music a little more seriously and reformed as The Spiders. In 1966, Michael Bruce came along to replace their original rhythm guitarist, and in 1967, they would replace the original drummer with Neil Smith. Now we have the band that would eventually become Alice Cooper, but we're not there just yet. The band started making regular trips down to Los Angeles to play shows, and even recorded a couple singles, which were doing very well locally. They changed their name yet again to The Nazz, which according to Urban Dictionary is a David Bowie reference, meaning the hippest, most magnetic of beings. But turns out, when you know, there was already a band called The Nazz, and The Nazz went to The Nazz and said, nah. So the band found themselves needing a new name yet again. Legend states that the name Alice Cooper was the name of a 13th century witch who had contacted the band during a Ouija board session. The truth is a lot less interesting, as it usually is. According to the man himself, they were having a brainstorming session and the name Alice Cooper just kind of popped out of his mouth. To him, the name had a similar ring to it as something like Lizzie Borden. He imagined a young girl with a lollipop in one hand and a butcher's knife in the other. He beat American McGee to the punch by 32 years. The name Alice Cooper was intended to sound innocent and wholesome, as to stand in stark contrast to the band's sinister on-stage appearance and antics. Alice was performing with makeup inspired by Bette Davis in the film Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. And even in the early days, they were using hanging gallows and guillotines as part of the stage performance. You see, Cooper believed that the band needed some kind of gimmick to succeed. Something to make them stand out. He didn't think that most rock groups were really utilizing the full potential of the stage. His idea for Alice Cooper lived somewhere between rock band and Broadway, deciding that there's no reason spectacle couldn't also play a part in the musical experience. Essentially, if you've got a stage, put on a show. The band at this point was really heavy into psychedelic and experimental rock, citing Pink Floyd's Piper at the Gates of Dawn as one of their biggest influences, and Syd Barrett himself specifically being a great inspiration to them. However, this was not appreciated by everyone. In one of the most extreme cases of failing forward that I have ever seen, the band got their big break when they did so poorly at a gig at the Cheetah Club in Venice, California, that an entire venue full of patrons had cleared out after the band had been playing for only 10 minutes. This was so disastrous that it caught the attention of music manager Shep Gordon, who was in attendance. He reasoned that any band that could have such a forcefully negative impact on an audience could be worked with and turned around to a more productive direction. God bless people like that. Shep then set up an audition for the band with none other than Frank Zappa, who was on the lookout for oddball music acts for his label, Straight Records. Quite famously, Zappa told the band to show up at his house at 7 o'clock for the audition. The band had assumed he meant 7 in the morning, because why wouldn't he? Being woken up by a band ready to play that particular brand of psychedelic rock and roll so early in the morning impressed Zappa enough that he signed the band to a 3-album deal right then and there. It's like a comedy of errors, but everything's working out. They're like the Mr. Magoo of rock bands. The band would release their first album with Straight Records in 1969, Pretty's For You. So, great. They're officially signed, they've got an album out, they're poised for stardom, right? Well, no. Alice Cooper may well have been destined for obscurity had it not been for one rather unfortunate incident involving a chicken. Any of you familiar with Alice Cooper know this story, I'm sure, but for those who don't, let me break it down for you. You see, Mr. Cooper was accused of killing a live chicken on stage. The sensationalist headlines went so far as to claim he bit the head off the thing and drank its blood. Now, that specific portrayal of events did not happen. What did happen is during a show, and in fact during a stage act in which they specifically tore open feathered pillows and would blow feathers all over the audience, a live chicken somehow ended up on stage. There are conflicting reports of how it got there. There's been no real confirmation of how that chicken ended up there, but the story as it's been told is that Cooper thought that somebody had thrown this bird up on stage. He picked it up and, having absolutely no knowledge of farm animals, assumed that it being a winged creature would fly. So he threw it back into the audience, expecting it to just kind of fly off back to wherever it needed to go. But chickens don't fly. So the poor thing just plummeted right into the front rows of the audience, who, in a frenzy, just tore the bird apart. What the fuck, guys? I don't know, maybe they didn't realize it was a live bird at first, since they were literally just, blasted with feathers and thought this was like a stage prop or something, but yeesh. Rest in peace, Foghorn. You'll be missed. As stated, the incident was quite wildly misrepresented, and as can be expected, headlines of a man wearing a dress and makeup killing a chicken live on stage and drinking its blood while playing rock and roll music was cause for quite a stir for the quainter sensibilities of 1969. The incident, as you can imagine, brought the band a lot of new attention. They became infamous and therefore famous.
Could you please explain?
The one on the right was accused of killing a chicken on stage.
Okay.
That never happened, all right? The one on the left is a mass murderer.
Those headlines, along with the rest of Alice Cooper's onstage debauchery, put the band in a new category of rockers, shock rock. I don't know if Alice Cooper was the first ever shock rock band, but they sure as hell pioneered it. But even this didn't really translate to success for the band, just notoriety, with their second album, Easy Action, in 1970 actually performing worse than their debut. Culture at the time was still hanging on to the peace and love hippie sentiments of the 1960s, and Cooper's notoriety, along with the increasingly violent stage acts with this attitude of sex, death, and money, weren't quite for the palate of the day. But as we all know, the hippie era would end right around this time, and with its demise, this style of rock and roll and eventually metal would become increasingly fashionable. The band would have its first hit off their third record, Love It to Death, in 1971 with the single I'm 18, which would hit number 21 on the Billboard Hot 100. Easily one of my favorite Alice Cooper songs, and is essentially the angsty young punk's version of I'm Not a Girl, Not Yet a Woman. The song's success prompted Warner Brothers Records to purchase the band's contract from Straight Records and re-release the album Love It to Death with greater promotion. With the newly gained big corporate backing behind them, the album would reach number 35 on the Billboard album charts and would officially be the breakthrough for Alice Cooper. Now, of course, Alice Cooper had many hits to follow this, School's Out probably being one of the most famous, alongside Billion Dollar Babies. And the album, Billion Dollar Babies, was actually the first album of theirs to hit number 1. The band would continue to shock audiences and horrify parents well throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s, doing what every good rock band should do. They paved the way for an entire genre of music, and it'd be difficult to find a single hard rock or metal act operating today that doesn't owe at least some of their success to Alice Cooper. The band still makes music today. Not all the original members are there, but the main man Alice is of course still at the forefront. He also opened teen centers, Alice Cooper's Solid Rock Teen Centers, which help wayward teens discover and nurture creative and artistic outlets. So good on him. That's pretty wholesome for a guy who gets his head chopped off almost every night. So there you have it, the band and the man, Alice Cooper, the biggest band out of Arizona. Were you familiar with them? What's your favorite song or album and why? Who do you think's really to blame in that chicken incident? It's pretty mysterious, huh? Also, if you're from Arizona, please go ahead and list any local bands that you enjoy. Whether it's a band you know, a friend's band, your band. Go ahead and comment any local acts that you think deserve a shout out, as well as a link to their music so that I can check them out. Once this series is over, I would love to circle back and promote any of my favorite local bands from your suggestions, so please get them down there, let me know. If you like this video, go ahead and strum the thumb, up picking or down picking, any which way, it's okay. Make sure you subscribe if you would like to come back. Thank you for coming back if you're already subscribed. Always good to see you. Thank you for coming out. And I'll see you at the next gig.